Ever glanced at the tag on your t-shirt and really thought about the story behind it? I don't just mean the brand name, but the real story, the people who made it, the journey it took, everything. Well, today, we're going to pull that curtain back. We're going to dig into the true cost of all those trendy, super affordable clothes that are everywhere you look. And we're not going to start with a price tag. We're going to start with a single, really powerful number. Take a good look at this number, 1,129. Now, this isn't a style number, it's not a price, it represents something so much more tragic. It's the number of people who died making cheap clothing in a single day. Yeah, this is what that number means. Back on April 24th, 2013, the Rana Plaza factory in Bangladesh, a place that was cranking out clothes from major North American brands, just collapsed. It's one of the worst manufacturing disasters in history, and it happened because the owner illegally added extra floors to the building with terrible safety standards, all in the name of producing more, faster, and cheaper. A tragedy like this, it doesn't just happen out of the blue. It was really a symptom of a much, much larger system. So let's break down the hidden costs of the fashion industry that made something like this even possible. It all really starts with this idea of fast fashion. This is an industry model that's built on just churning out huge amounts of trendy, low-quality clothes at unbelievably low prices. People often call it disposable clothing because, honestly, it's not made to last more than a season. And this constant, relentless demand for new, cheap stuff puts incredible pressure on everyone down the line. And that pressure, it leads directly to places like this, sweatshops. We're talking about factories where workers are stuck in dangerously hot conditions, working insane hours for wages that you just can't live on. To give you a little context, the average full-time garment worker in Bangladesh earns about $74 a month. And tragically, this whole system often relies on child labor. Now, child labor is any work that's harmful to a kid's health or their development. And in the garment industry, some employers actually prefer to hire children. Why? Well, the reasons are pretty grim. They have small hands, which are great for detailed work like sewing on buttons, and they're less likely to know their rights or to demand better conditions. Now, the source material for this presents a number that is, well, it's just staggering. It claims that an estimated 22 million children die every year from hazardous conditions tied to global poverty, and that includes the kind of conditions you'd find in sweatshops. It's a number so huge it's almost hard to wrap your head around, but it really speaks to the unbelievable scale of the crisis that the world's most vulnerable children are facing. So the kind of exploitation we've been talking about, these unsafe conditions, child labor, these aren't just business problems, right? They are straight up human rights violations. So how does the world even try to set a universal standard for just basic human dignity? Well, to understand that, we have to rewind a little. In the aftermath of World War II, after the absolute horrors of the Holocaust, leaders from all over the globe were determined to make sure that atrocities like that could never happen again. They all came together with one shared goal: to spell out the fundamental rights and freedoms that belong to every single person on this planet. And that massive effort led to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The UN got to work on it in 1946, and by 1948, 58 countries had adopted it, even with all their differences. And today, it's still the foundational document, kind of like the blueprint for international human rights law. The whole thing is built on 4 core principles. They're universal, meaning they apply to everyone, everywhere, no exceptions. They're interdependent, so you can't just pick and choose which rights matter. They're equal for everybody. And this last one, this one is so crucial. They are both rights and obligations. What that means is, yes, we are all entitled to our rights, but we also have a responsibility to respect the rights of others. But look, having a declaration on paper is one thing. Actually enforcing it is a whole different story. So when rights are violated on a massive scale, how is the global community supposed to respond? Well, there are basically 4 main tools in the toolbox. The first step is mediation through the UN. If that fails, the International Criminal Court can step in to prosecute individuals. Military force is really a last resort, and then there are economic sanctions which apply financial pressure to try and force a change. So, to put it simply, you can think of the UN Security Council as trying to keep the peace between countries. The ICC, on the other hand, acts more like a global prosecutor. It goes after individuals for the most heinous crimes when their own countries can't or won't.
It's really easy to feel like these issues are just too big, right? Like they're just for global institutions to handle. But the most powerful force for change doesn't sit in a courtroom or a government building. It's actually much, much closer to home.
Just look at this comparison. On one side, we've got that fast fashion model we've been talking about: low wages, unsafe conditions, and a laser focus on profit. But on the other side, there's a real alternative: fair trade. It's a model that's built on fair pay, sustainability, and ethical practices.
And this isn't just some nice idea on paper. Meet Tal the Hatcher. His shoe company, O Liberté, makes high-end shoes in Africa, and he provides fair wages and benefits for his employees in Ethiopia. It's living proof that a business can be both profitable and ethical.
So, what is fair trade exactly? It's a completely different way of looking at business. It prioritizes paying the people in developing countries who actually make the products a fair price for their work, all while making sure that production is sustainable for society and the environment. It's about people and the planet, not just the bottom line. This brings us to the power of a single person. Remember that first number we saw, 1129? Well, here's another one to think about: over $5 million.
This is the amount of money raised by Bilal Rajan. He started his journey as an activist when he was just 4 years old, selling clementine oranges in his neighborhood to raise money for earthquake victims. He has since raised over $5 million for all sorts of causes, and he proves that you are never too young to create global change. So what can you do? Well, here are 5 pretty simple steps. First, just get educated about the brands you support. Try to shop local when you can. Look for organic and fair trade certified labels. And finally, embrace secondhand shopping or even trading clothes with friends. Every single choice you make sends a message.
It all really comes down to this simple but incredibly powerful idea from Mahatma Gandhi: you must be the change you want to see in the world. Real change doesn't start with governments or big corporations. It starts with the choices that all of us make every single day.
So we end right where we began, with a question. Looking at everything we've uncovered, from the unbelievable tragedy of Rana Plaza to the hope of fair trade and the power of one person, the final question isn't just for governments or CEOs. It's for you. How can you do your part?